Ready? Good evening. Welcome to our panel discussion. First of all, let me apologize for the delay in beginning. Server is down. We use Spectrum server, and there's an issue through our BOCES. The good news is I'm here with our director of technology, and we figured out how to do it on a Chromebook. And everybody seems like they want to. So we'll get started now. And again, I do apologize. So welcome. This is actually our third meeting of the day. We had two forums with our employees today. We had one this morning and one again this afternoon that went very, very well. And we anticipate this one going well also. So I want to start with a quick overview. If you had a chance to listen to the board meeting presentation last night, we had about an hour and a half presentation and a discussion, went through the whole plan, the nuts and bolts of it. The board members asked some really great questions that are probably on your minds as well. That recording will be available. So I ask you to look for that. The PowerPoint's going to be on our website, and the recording will be there as well. So if you want to listen to the whole thing and get some of the nuts and bolts of what we're planning on doing in September, then please watch that. Tonight, I won't obviously go through that whole thing. The plan tonight is to give you a quick overview and then just start going through the questions. Thank you so much for submitting the questions. We had over 200 already. We obviously can't get to them all tonight. We've planned for about an hour. With a little delay in the start, we'll be willing to go more than that a little bit, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. I want to assure everyone, for the questions we do not get to tonight in person, we will answer every question that comes into that COVID-19 email. So please continue to email. If you've emailed already, we will answer those. But if you have further questions after tonight, just email that covid19@troycsd.org email, and we will answer them. I do ask that you be a little patient with us. As I said, we had over 200 of those already, and so it will take us some time to get to those answers, but I do promise you we will get to them. So our reopening plan was submitted last Friday. That was the submission deadline for the state. It's a plan that has the health and safety of our students and our staff and the families as our top priority. Our goal all along was to get as many students as possible to safely return to school in person. We used recommendations and guidance from the CDC, from the New York State Department of Health, and certainly from the New York State Education Department. The plan was developed with input from stakeholders at every level of the organization, all the schools, all the different areas, in collaboration with our reopening committee. I should give a shout out, great job by the reopening committee. We had 3 full committee meetings and more than several subcommittee meetings where a lot of the work got done. This is a plan that is in collaboration with everybody, pretty much, again, all levels of the district, getting input. And we also used the responses. We sent out that survey from about 6.5 weeks ago. We got 400 responses from staff and 1,500 responses from you, the community. So we really appreciate that. We read every single one of them, and we used those responses to help guide what we were putting in this plan. And we're trying to be responsive to the concerns and the ideas that we've heard and shared. One of the main things we wanted to put in this plan was to give parents choice. We know it's a difficult time for everybody. We know some people have issues that may keep them from being able to come in person, and so a key to our plan was to give parents that choice, and so that is in there. I probably should take the time now to say, if you haven't filled out the form, it was put out online earlier this week. The deadline is next Friday. To please let us know if you're coming in person or if you are going to choose remote only. And also in that plan, in that form, we're asking some questions about transportation. So Right before I came to this meeting, I took a peek. There was a little over 1,000 responses already, so really great job. Thank you very much for that. If you haven't gotten to that form yet, please do so by next Friday. The other thing about the plan before I start getting to the questions is it's based on the information that we currently have as of today, as of right now. The governor is scheduled to come out this week. Well, we're already at Thursday night, so I assume it's going to be tomorrow to give his guidance and his orders about opening school. Based on what he says tomorrow, we may have to change the whole plan. We might have to change pieces of it or parts of it. We may have to delay the implementation of it. So it's the plan right now, but certainly can change. There are also some details and logistics in the plan that are still being developed. Some of the specifics about different courses, and in some of your questions over the last week as I was reading them, we don't have all of those answers yet, but are working on them, and we'll obviously get to them. Remember the SED guidance, it was a 145-page guidance, came out, and 2 weeks later our plan was due. So it was a little bit of a rush act, but I'm really proud of what we put together. And again, the things that aren't filled in yet detail-wise certainly are to come. And then this plan is always, it's a fluid process. It can and will change. That could depend on the governor. It could depend on situations specific to Troy or specific to a classroom. And so, as things change in the world, things will change with our plan. So we ask people to be patient and flexible as we navigate this new normal for all of us. We will do our best to be transparent and keep the communication lines open throughout this whole process and really throughout this school year. So with that, I would like to start to the questions. And again, we have a lot here. So any that we don't get to, please do not be offended. We will get to them by email, and we will certainly answer every question that comes in. We did group some together because they were very similar. So you might hear the subject of your question, but worded a little differently. That's because there may have been 3 or 4 or 5 or more questions of similar nature, and so we've kind of combined them when that happened. I should introduce everybody. I'm sorry. I did mention our Director of Technology before. Erin Shevers is here. She's also going to serve as the moderator. Now that we're using the Chromebook, you won't be able to see everybody, but I'll still introduce them. Adam Hotelling is our Assistant Superintendent for Business, and he'll be responsible for most of the health and safety kind of questions and cleaning and that kind of thing. Dr. Donna Watson's our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, so she'll be answering those questions based on our instructional program. Director of Human Resources, Krista Miyaski, who was busy in today's sessions with the employees. She deals mainly with the staff issues and those kinds of things, certifications and that, so she might not be too busy tonight. And then I really appreciate 2 members of our teachers union here tonight. Bob Wallen, who's a physical education teacher, but also the vice president of the teachers union, and Maxine Brisport, who has double duty. She's a school psychologist, but also the coordinator of our parent engagement program, which is going to be, obviously, they're both on a reopening committee, and both have been really instrumental in getting this plan together. And the parent engagement committee, obviously, will be a huge part of our communication that I was just talking about. Okay, so now after all that, all the apologies for starting late, and we are ready to start the questions.
The first question is about the school schedule. When will parents know what the finalized reopening plan is?
So that goes to what I was just talking about. I'm not sure there's ever going to be a finalized reopening plan. So the plan in place as of today is the one on the website, the one we submitted to SED. It will change at some point. Again, after the governor speaks tomorrow, we may have to make changes to it. But we won't frivolously make changes for it. We won't randomly make changes without notifying. So depending on what the governor says tomorrow, we'll get a better idea next week. But I'm not sure we're ever going to call it a finalized plan because it has to be a fluid process with the situation we're in.
Are there going to be changes to the calendar, start and end times, or vacation days?
A very good question. As far as the calendar goes, we are considering A couple of things. One that I mentioned last night at the board meeting that I just referenced. So every year we have 4 professional development days. Those are the days that are staff-only days where the students are home and the staff has training on a wide range of things, safety and security, or a new literacy program, or differentiated instruction, whatever it might be. So those 4 days are usually 2 right at the beginning of school before students start. There's usually 1 in November and 1 again in the spring, usually around March, in the 3rd week of March. So we are considering, given the situation we're in and all the uncertainties that are out there for staff and students and families alike, using the 4 professional development days right at the beginning of the school year. So we will make a decision in the next day or 2, and we'll make sure we get it out to everybody information-wise early next week. But the idea is the 4 days after Labor Day, so the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday after Labor Day would be our 4 professional development days all wrapped into one. Students would then start the following Monday, the 14th, and then we would not have the professional development days in November or March. It will give everybody a chance to get fully ready for the year to start and fully ready for what's ahead of us. So it's what we're leaning towards right now, but again, we'll make a final decision early next week. As far as the start and end times go, there may be some changes to that. Later on in the questions, we'll get to transportation. Transportation is a real issue for us right now with the rules and guidelines from the state. So what it's going to cause us to do, in short, which I'll get to it later, is we may have to have extra runs of transportation. So we can't put every kid on the bus that normally would go on the bus. And so we'll have to make, for even one elementary school, we'll have to either have extra buses for that school or extra runs. So if the extra buses happen, it means some schools might have to start later. And so we're working on that. It could mean up to an hour later for some of those, for a couple of the elementary schools. Again, I know that's a change for people, and I know that's something you need to know sooner rather than later. So we will make a decision on that as soon as we can. That one is dependent on some transportation things that we're starting to work out, and also answers to the survey that we just were talking about. And vacation days, at this point, I don't see any changes to our vacation days. Remember last year when they closed when the school had to close in the spring, we did technically lose spring break and Good Friday and some other places. So that could happen. There's no plans for that to happen right now, but that's the uncertainty of the situation we're in, and that will really always depend on the governor. We have no plans to change any of those at this point.
What is the plan for the amount of time scheduled for outdoor recess and PE?
So I think I've been talking a little much, so I'm going to turn to Dr. Watson for this one. So outdoor recess and PE.
So we do have a meeting first thing tomorrow morning with some of our special area curriculum leaders. And at this time, we can assure you that we will have time for recess and PE. But I think the key word with regard to this one is flexibility. So we're not exactly sure of the minutes, and we're not exactly sure of the delivery method, but we can promise that recess and PE will happen on a regular basis. They will likely look different than they have in the past.
And the good thing with both of those is it's outside. And so, one of the follow-up questions that we got in the email was, what about masks? So, the rule for the classroom and social distancing normally is 6 feet, as I think everyone knows. For PE, for chorus, for some of those other specials, it's actually 12 feet. So it'll be hard to, like Dr. Watson said, things are going to be a little different. It'll be hard to have PE in a typical sense. But going outside and stretching your legs and getting some exercise. And once you're 12 feet apart and once you're outside, the mask certainly would not have to be worn.
All right, the next round of questions relate to the in-person learning model. The first question is, can we change from in-person to remote schooling once the school year has started?
Yeah, that's a good question. That came up several times. So It's a question that's obvious on the mind of quite a few people. So the form that I already referenced that's due next Friday, parents are deciding if they're going to go remote only or choose the in-person model. Now that in-person model, we'll get to in a little bit, does mean a hybrid in the secondary level. But for those that are choosing remote only, we're asking you to commit for almost the first semester. Christmas break, once we get back from Christmas break, we will allow some changes at that time. The question here is, can you go the other way? And the answer is yes. If you choose an in-person model and your son or daughter comes to school for a few weeks and it's not working for them for one reason or another, or health issues happen, or it's just you just change your comfort level, or for some other reason change your mind about it, you can go from the in-person to the remote model. But we ask when you do that you are then committing till spring break, or excuse me, till Christmas break. So anyone who goes to remote now or goes to remote during the school year, we'll ask you to commit till the Christmas break so that we can plan for any return to school from a large group of people.
How will school entry and exit be handled?
Yeah, this was asked quite a few times as well. So we had many conversations with the principals, and again, the staff, the administration, the faculty, everybody's just been really great. All the committees that we put together. So one of the things the principals have decided, and this will also go to some of the screening questions, which I think is going to come later. We're going to try to have more than one. We're going to have more than one entrance at each building. So we'll have the infrared thermometers at each building for the student screening, but we'll also, and it'll be different by building, but some buildings will separate them by grade levels. Each grade level maybe have a different entrance, or a couple of grades, K1 in one entrance, 2-3 in another, or so on. So we will try to spread out the entrances. We will also spread out as buses arrive. Kids will stay on a bus until it's clear, and we'll ask cooperation. I mean, one of the things, the themes today with the employees is, things are going to be different for everybody, and people are going to be asked to do things that are a little bit different than they're used to over the last however many years. And that'll be no different for the families as well. So as you're dropping off your son or daughter, that gets congested a lot of times. And so we'll be asking you to work with us on that, stagger kids getting out of buses and stagger kids getting out of cars. We will elicit the help of the Troy Police Department as well in that as best we can. So that's an orderly fashion. But again, I think spreading out the entrances and having different entrances for a grade level or two will really help in that regard.
How will you manage movement of students through the school if they are changing classes throughout the day? The halls get extremely crowded and social distancing will be impossible. Masks will be difficult to enforce.
So that's a middle school and high school question mainly. And I have talked to both of those principals at length as well. We haven't decided on a final plan of attack yet, but things that we're discussing are, well, one thing I should say at the top is there's not going to be lockers. And so there's not going to be stopping at a locker and congregating with friends. It's going to be come out of your class, walk in a straight line, almost like the supermarket is set up. So we've talked about one-way hallways possibly. We've talked about stairwells only being up or down so people aren't crossing in the stairwell. The middle school is actually set up pretty well because of the small learning community. So all the 6th grade classes are in one small learning community, all the 7th and all the 8th. So pretty much they stay in that area for the most part of the day. So the middle school kind of by default has it working a little bit already. But we are looking at, again, no lockers to keep the movement going. Possible one-way hallways and up or down stairwells. And also masks will be required in the hallways. So students and staff will be required to wear masks entering the building, exiting the building, when they're in the hallways, going from one place to another. When they get to the classrooms and they're socially distant in those classrooms, or in the cafeteria to eat, that's when they can take it off.
So will students be using lockers?
So yeah, I kind of just answered that one in the last one, but so we will not have lockers. Again, that'll be something different. So we'll have to figure out, what the protocols and procedures are going to be. The code of conduct for, as far as I've been here, has said no backpacks during the day and all those kinds of things. And that's always for safety reasons. So we'll have to figure out how to navigate this, I keep saying the new normal. Sorry for that trade expression, but we'll have to navigate that and figure out what those new protocols are going to be to allow kids to get from class to class with their materials.
Will students be allowed to bring their own water bottles to class to avoid the water fountains?
Sure. I don't know, is it worth Mr. Hotani talking about the water fountains in general? The answer is yes to that. Certainly they can bring their own water bottles and probably are encouraged to do so.
And some schools have filling stations as well.
Yeah, so we have put filling stations in some of the schools. And so those will, you can fill up your water bottle with the distilled water.
Will there be a teacher in each classroom, or are they teaching remotely from a different location?
Every classroom will have a teacher. Some teachers will also be teaching remote. So we're working out the details on that, but there won't be a classroom that doesn't have a teacher in it. The teachers, and it depends on the numbers, it depends on how many families are actually going to choose the remote option, but we will, for example, if there are 22 third graders throughout the district that are choosing the remote option, we will have a third grade teacher for those students. So that teacher will be dedicated to that group. But again, that'll all depend on the numbers of students families who are choosing remote and how they break out school and grade level and all that.
We are in school 16. If we choose the remote learning option, will their teachers be from school 16? Then when they go back to school in January, would they have a different teacher?
Good question. So not necessarily, and yes. So it says we're in school 16. If we choose remote option, is the teacher necessarily from school 16? And the answer to that is no. A similar question, I think it might be coming up, said, are the teachers going to be from Questar or some other place? They are going to be Troy teachers. But if you're going to choose a remote option, like the example I just gave, if we have 22 third graders who are choosing remote option, they're not necessarily all going to be from the same school. They're going to be from all the different schools. And so the teacher will be a teacher that may also have some health conditions or some reason that they want to be remote. And so we'll try to match up those things and try to be as accommodating as we possibly can for everybody. But that won't necessarily be a teacher from your child's school. And so therefore the next question has to be yes, excuse me. If you come back in January and go to your actual school, then you will join the class that's there, which will not be the teacher you had for remote. Probably not. I suppose it could be, but most likely not.
If a student is enrolled for in-person but needs to be out either due to precautionary quarantine or actual COVID, will we be able to access online learning and then return to in-person?
Yeah, so the remote only option is the one that you can't go back and forth. If you're selecting remote only, again, we're asking you to commit till Christmas break. But if you're quarantined and officially quarantined from the Department of Health, then we will make arrangements for their virtual option. And that will range, I don't want to get into too much of the specifics, but that will depend on the grade level. So at the secondary level, there's already a 2-day on in person and 2 days virtual, 2 days in person, 2 days virtual. So that'll be an easy transition. You just would stay virtual if you're in that quarantine situation. At the elementary level, since everybody's really in person, if you have a 2-week quarantine, we will arrange, and we've done it even pre-COVID with Chromebook Buddy, kind of what we're doing right now. When the server went down, we switched to this mode. So it'd be similar to this, where a student be home for 2 weeks, but have a Chromebook Buddy in class, and so the teacher the student will be able to see the teacher through the Chromebook. And so yes, that will happen. And as soon as that quarantine's over, that student will go right back to class.
Will lunch still be in the cafeteria, or will students be eating lunch in their classrooms?
Probably depending on the grade level. So for the most part, there'll be some exceptions to all of these things, but for the most part, at the elementary grades, the kids will be eating in the classroom. That's going to be cause some extra work for the custodians, and so we're working on protocols to handle that. They'll be emptying quite a bit of trash all day long, but at the elementary level, that's better than kids moving out of class and going to the cafeteria. At the middle school and high school level, since only 50% of the kids will be in the school, those schedules are pretty much, when the kids are here, going to be looking like their normal schedule. There'll be half the kids in their classes and half the kids in the hallways and half the kids in the cafeterias, but their schedule will predominantly stay the same. So they will use the cafeteria. We will also open up in both schools. They have an extra, extra gym. We'll use the upper gym at the high school and the auxiliary gym here at the middle school as extra lunch space for the periods that have too many kids to socially distance. The things we're thinking about, again, not finally decisions, but things we're thinking about is assigning seats in the cafeteria so that, the kids aren't standing and congregating, but they come right in and go right and sit down at their table by themselves. And also trying to figure out the safest and most socially distant way to get the food delivered to them. Again, as I said before, they'll wear masks into the cafeteria, but we'll be able to take them off once they're sitting and socially distant.
Can students bring their own lunch from home to school?
Sure, they can bring their own lunch. We do have the community free lunch program, so everybody does get a free lunch. But just like any other year, if students wish to bring their own lunch, they can.
The next round of questions is around what remote learning is going to look like in Troy. Can you please describe what the remote learning day could look like?
Sure. I'm actually going to have Dr. Watson do it, but just to be clear on the names, because we're still learning them and figuring them out too. So in person is, I think, obvious. We're calling virtual learning the opposite of in person. So if you're here for 2 days and you're virtually learning for 2 days, then you're here for 2 days and you're virtually learning for 2 days. That's the secondary level. For the people that are going to be not in person ever, we're calling that remote. So again, we'll try to make sure we're consistent with that language, but the remote learning option is the one that people are choosing to not come into school, at least for the first semester. And Dr. Watson, can you explain what that day will look like?
I'd be happy to. So at both the elementary and secondary levels, the remote learning option will be a full day of school. It will absolutely be instruction provided by certified teachers. I noticed in the question it said, is it possible that some special area certified teachers will be tasked with teaching the virtual kids? No. They will be teaching the special area perhaps, but the teachers who are teaching the remote learning students will be certified in those subject areas. So at the elementary level, the day will minimally consist of reading, writing, math, social studies and science, intervention, and some special area instruction in art, music, PE, and library. Again, that will be delivered flexibly. The learning management system, so how students will be participating in their learning, will be at the elementary level using Google Classroom and or using Seesaw, which is a learning management system designed for elementary students. Our elementary students have already used both of those learning management systems, so we feel like that will be a really easy transition for students who are choosing the full remote option. At the secondary level, so the middle school and high school, again, students will have a full schedule of classes taught by certified teachers, and in the 2 days that they are in person, they will go to their classroom and have their instruction, and then on the days that they are home, they will participate in the same classes virtually. So that would be, you know, the hybrid. The kids who are remote, we decided for their model to be a complete standalone. So there won't be any, as Mr. Carmelo said, mixing of the remote and the hybrid. So the remote learning at the high school will use Google Classroom as their main learning management system, but we also have a few other secondary learning management systems like Edmentum and Apex that we've used with secondary students in a blended model, and we will absolutely be using some of those systems for our remote-only students. So I hope that clarifies how that would be delivered.
Thank you.
If we choose full remote model, can our children still play sports?
The answer is yes. If you're choosing the full remote model, you still are, a student here at Troy and can participate in any of the activities we have. The issue will be, which is an answer I think that's going to come up later, is are they going to B sports and extracurricular activities? So I think it's probably a good idea to talk about those right now. Sports will depend on, it will not be a Troy School District decision. That will depend on the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. They put guidance out about 3 weeks ago to postpone fall sports. Fall sports typically would be starting next week for practices, and that's cross country, soccer, football, golf. They put guidance out last week that said that won't start until the earliest September 21st. In the same memo, however, they said if things aren't better by September 21st, I'm paraphrasing, then they have another plan, which is to start all sports in January and do 3 very short 10-week seasons. So it'll be winter sports, then fall sports, then spring sports, all starting early January, 10 weeks on, and then the next season starts. So my guess, and it's not anything with inside information, but just my hunch, is that that's the model that's going to be put into place. That way they'll have more time to figure out how the world will look in December and January. But right now, fall sports for now has been postponed until September 21st, and we'll keep looking at that. Extracurricular activities, we talked to the advisors or to the reopening committee and to the TTA about the advisors. If advisors can show us that the extracurricular activities can be done virtually and be meaningful to kids, I mean, we are strong believers in well-rounded education with inside and outside the classroom activities for kids, and certainly great for resumes for college and all of that. So if we can get some extracurricular activities that the advisors feel like they can do in a meaningful way virtually, then we will allow that. So still to come on that.
Great. The next round of questions relates to the hybrid learning model. Can you please describe what the hybrid schedule will look like?
So Dr. Watson just did a pretty good job of that in her other answer, but the hybrid model is going to be for grades 6 through 12, and it's going to be a combination of in-person and then virtual. The goal behind it is to obviously lower the density of the students in the school. So every day there will be 50%, give or take. It won't be cut right down the middle, but 50% of our students on any given day here at the middle school and high school. And so when you're here in person, you're going through your regular schedule with all your regular teachers. You do that for 2 days, then you go home for 2 days, and then you're logging on virtually with the same exact schedule. So if you have a 9:30 English class when you're here in person, and 9:30 at home, you log on, again, just like we're doing right now, and you have your 9:30 English class that you're watching through your Chromebook. There's a question coming on later on about technology. We will be supplying Chromebooks for every kid. Erin Shevers and I have been talking about it for a couple of years now, being one-to-one. And after the pandemic and the closures last spring, she has convinced me that it's time to do that. So every kid will have a Chromebook. I know people got them last spring. We did get some questions that say, I never picked one up because I had one, but now I don't. So we will get that information out and make sure that everybody is aware, and every kid will have a Chromebook. And we'll be asking them, obviously they'll have them when they're here too, but then they'll log on when they're home virtually. So that's the hybrid model in a nutshell.
Why was the hybrid model not implemented for the elementary schools?
Well, it could have been. It was in some districts. I said at the very beginning, our goal was to get as many students as possible to return safely in person and prioritize the kids that been shown that need it the most. And so if you listen to the CDC guidance, if you listen to pediatricians that are out there, if you're listening to the educational experts, the younger kids, the elementary kids, the special education students, and the English language learners are the groups that really suffer. So adults to be here, not just for the academics, but for the social aspect and the interactions and all the other great things that come with going to school on a daily basis.
Will students be changing classes?
Well, at the middle school and high school, yes. As I said, they'll have the same schedule. They'll go through their schedule and change classes. 50% of the students will not be here, so it'll be a little easier. We still have to manage it, and still won't be, no work, but we will manage it, and yes, they will be changing classes. At the elementary level, that will be limited. It won't be as often as currently or last year happened. Those changes of classes, we talked earlier about PE and recess. There will be times where the class leaves their room and walks with their masks on in single file outside to stretch the legs, get some fresh air, get some activity in. But other than that, at the elementary level, it'll be very limited changing classes.
For the hybrid version, since it's 2 days in person and 2 days of virtual instruction, what is happening on the 5th day, since there are 5 days in the week?
That question came up a lot, which just told me that we didn't communicate well enough what the plan was. So it's 2 days on, 2 days in person, 2 days virtual, 2 days in person again, 2 days virtual, and that will overlap weeks. So there's no 5th day necessarily. So some weeks the in-person will be there 3 times, and then you'll be home for 2. But then the following week you'll be in-person 2 and virtual for 3. So I know it may seem confusing. Again, if you check the presentation from last night, we had a sample calendar in there for September. What we will do is get a calendar out from the first day of school through December break that has each group. You're going to get assigned a group at the middle school and high school, and told which group's coming in person, which group's going to be virtual, and then we'll send calendars home for parents and put it on our website, so you'll be able to look at December 4th and know whether you're in person or virtual that day. So we'll make it as user-friendly as we can, but there is no 5th extra day. It just starts, the 2 days start over again. So it's Monday, Tuesday in person, Wednesday, Thursday virtual, Friday, Monday in person, Tuesday, Wednesday virtual, and so on.
How are the change of classes going to be handled to avoid crowds in the hallways? Even with 50% of students, there's still going to be a crowd.
Yeah, I think I answered that one already, but again, we'll try to figure out if one-way hallways make sense, if one up or down stairwells make sense. There will be no lockers to stop at, so I think I already answered that.
My first question is, are siblings going to be attending school on the same days, or are all students attending school doing so on the same days?
Yeah, so this was a great question. This was one I'm not sure we thought of right away, but certainly we will make that work. So if you have 2 students at the high school or 2 at the middle school, or even 1 in each building, or more than 1, if you have students in both the middle school and high school, we will make sure that your students, sons or daughters, are assigned the same day, so that for consistency for the family. So they will all be in school for 2, and then all be virtual for 2 with the same schedule. We will certainly make that work.
For grading, will the grading system continue to be pass-fail, or will the district revert back to their normal grading system?
I think I'll turn to Dr. Watson for this one again.
Thank you. We will be reverting back to a grading system, so we will not be following the pass-fail option that we used in the spring, but we will be reverting to grades. And in the Troy City School District, we use standards-based report cards in pre-K through grade 5. We have a hybrid at grade 6, and we use traditional 0 to 100% grading in grades 7 through 12. So all students, whether in person or remote, will receive actual grades.
Will there be Regents still? And will the virtual instruction still prepare my kids at a level to meet the Regents requirements?
So whether there'll be Regents or not is certainly not our decision to make, but that'll be one of the things where we said the plan may change. So we got a late decision last year when the Regents were canceled. The grade 3 through 8 testing was canceled earlier, but nothing yet for this school year. People are lobbying for that because of being off for 3 months last year, and then summer slide, and we're not starting in a normal school year. How fair is that to kids to then be held accountable this coming spring on schoolwork when you've had that kind of situation that we're all dealing with. So it could happen that the Regents are canceled again. It could happen that the 3 through 8 are. We will wait and get our guidance from the state on that. But rest assured, whether they're on or not, the instruction you're going to get in person and the instruction you're going to get virtually and the instruction you're going to get if you're a remote only is going to be the high quality education that we're used to and proud of here in the Troy School District.
The next couple questions are about masks and hand sanitizer. Will masks and hand sanitizer be provided for all students?
Yes. So masks, yes, we're going to purchase. We've already put the purchase order in. We're purchasing the gator type masks. So those are the scarf kind that wear around your neck and then you can just pull up. We're purchasing, it'll have the Troy logo on it. So we're going to purchase those for every staff member and every student, and they'll have different colors. Staff will be different than the students. But everybody will get one of those. Those are washable, and you can wear them obviously more than once. We will also have disposable masks available. If for some reason they forgot it that day, or it's in the wash that day, or for any other reason that they don't have the gator mask that was issued to them. And I mean, you can't really go anywhere right now without a mask. You can't go into the grocery store or Walmart or a restaurant. So we also assume people have masks. So we do have a supply. We don't have an endless, unlimited supply. So we will ask cooperation in that regard too. We're going to give everyone again the gator mask, but if there's a time where you need to have one, then we'll ask if you can to also have your own. Hand sanitizers, yes, we've purchased a ton. We've got more on back order. We will have a hand sanitizer in every classroom. Kids and staff will be trained on, how often to use it. It should be on the way in, on the way out. We were talking today at the employee one about supplies, and are we handing out paper, and what are we doing in art class and things like that. So all of those things we're going to do, as best we can. With the guidance of, if you're touching something that somebody else has touched, then, make sure you wash your hands and use the hand sanitizer before and after. So yes, they will be provided.
Will shields be provided to teachers?
Yes, probably not every teacher, but we were lucky enough to receive a donation from Scott's Miracle Grow for 1,000 face shields, which we were very, very appreciative of, and we've actually called to ask for a few more just so we could have them. And so right now we have an extended school year program going for some of our special education students, and the face masks are perfect for speech therapists, OTPTs, social workers, the special self-contained special ed teachers, teachers that are needing real close contact and service providers for students. They'll all have face masks. The nurses will have them available, and any teacher that has a reason to request one, we'll take all requests. Again, we don't have an unlimited supply of those, but we will give them to the teachers that need them.
Will students be required to wear masks at all times, with the exception of during meal times?
No, I think I answered that already, but I'll quick answer it again. You have to wear them on the way into school, on the way out of school, anytime you're in the hallway, anytime you're not going to be socially distant. I mean, it sounds like a generic answer, but it's really the guidance and it's really the truth. So we are anticipating, and on the bus, definitely. I think I'm getting to transportation in a little bit, but on the bus, you have to have it on. When you sit down in the cafeteria, when you sit in your classroom right now, with the way we've designed this program, with 50% of the kids here and 50% virtual at the secondary level, and enough kids selecting the remote-only option, it looks like right now at the elementary level, that we'll be able to space desks out in the classroom. So as long as you can socially distant and sit in the class, our anticipation right now is that the kids would take them off once they sit down. Now, if a teacher's coming over to help with a problem, to help with a question on homework or something, the teacher will announce I'm coming over, and both parties will have to put a mask on. But when you're sitting there, just in class learning, you can take the mask off.
Great transition to transportation. How is transportation going to work?
Yeah. I mentioned that at the beginning, because transportation is, it's all been very difficult to navigate, for sure. The transportation is a real rough one. It's going to certainly add to our budget, which is not a great budget situation as it is, as you know. So the guidance is pretty clear from the state education department that you have 1 kid per seat. So that's an issue for us. At the elementary level, there are times where we have 3 kids per seat because they're little guys. So it's going to cause at least 2 runs, extra runs, and maybe a third. And so kids are going to be 1 per seat, and they're going to have a mask on. What it's going to mean for us, like I said earlier, it could mean that a couple of the elementaries have to start later so that we can get 3 of the elementaries in with all the buses going to those 3 schools so that we can spread the kids out. And then all those buses go get the next set of elementary kids. So I will let families know as soon as that's decided. We are also in conversations with CDTA for the high school kids. And so talked to Carm Basile, who's the CEO of CDTA, probably 6 times now. He's got some of our data that he's working on to see what he can do. We've been talking to him for a couple of years now to see if there's some partnership we can have. The good thing about that partnership, if we can make it work this year, is the kids that get those passes, they'll be the kind of passes that you can use at night, you can use on the weekend, to go to a job or to go wherever you're going. The drawback is, the stops won't be our Durham bus run stops. They'll be CDTA stops. So there may be a little more walking for a high school kid, but we're looking at it. And Carm Basile has been really good and willing to talk about what he can do about even trying to maybe modify some of the runs to get kids closer to where they need to go. So stay tuned for that. Again, I know some of this is undecided right now, and that causes uncertainty, which causes stress. But we're doing the best we can as fast as we can, trying to navigate all this ourselves. So hopefully we'll have an answer. I did reach out to Carm today, and he said he'd get back to me tomorrow. That doesn't mean he's going to have an answer tomorrow, but it'll further the conversation. So as soon as we know something, we will let everyone know.
How is social distancing implemented on the bus?
I think I just said that. So 1 per seat with the windows cracked open, I think is going to qualify. Is that right, Mr. Hotel?
That's correct. And The buses will be cleaned in between runs.
Excellent.
And yes.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Siblings or household members from the same household will be allowed to sit together.
Yes, and that'll help us. Thank you, Maxine, for reminding me of that. So if two kids in the same household are riding the bus together, they can sit together, which will be a help. We have that quite a bit. So.
There were some questions about the special education program.
Yeah. So for the special ed questions, again, we're going to answer them all, and we're going to answer them, in the email. But I spoke to Donna Fitzgerald this morning. She's our director of special ed and a great one. And so I thought it would be better she's going to try to do something specific to the special ed families and the special ed staff. So I'm going to postpone doing those tonight. We will answer them still in the email. I will say that, we will make sure that every support and service that's in the IEP will be implemented and offered. There will be nothing that's not done. I know in the spring, the schedule was a little bit different, and there were some things that were hard to get done. But we will make sure all of the IEP goals are met and the services are provided. But for the specific stuff, I will leave that to Ms. Fitzgerald.
I think you already addressed the next question about technologies. Will Chromebooks be provided to every student?
Yes.
I would just like to elaborate a little bit on that the Chromebooks we will have available to all students that want them, but we're also going to be allowing for BYOD, which is bring your own device. I know many parents have purchased Chromebooks for their students or other devices. Students will be able to bring them with them to school and access our internet and all of the resources they need from their personal device, if they so choose. If not, we will have a device for them.
And that's new for us.
That is new for us.
So that's again trying to adapt to this situation that we're in. So yeah, it's a great point, Ms. Shevers. Thank you for adding that. So we will supply Chromebooks to everybody, but we will also allow students to bring their own device, one maybe they're more comfortable with, to work off of.
In regards to the aftercare programs, will there still be any offered?
So this is an answer that probably everybody out there is not going to appreciate, and I understand that. But at this point, we cannot really have after-school programs in our school. I know the Empire program that's in every elementary school, and some of those schools have 200 plus kids after school every day till 5:30 getting dinner, and I know it's a great program. The problem is the cleaning and disinfecting that's going to have to go on when those after-school programs are there. Again, the students are getting picked up between 5:30 and 6, and then the staff sometimes is there longer. It's just not enough time, and so it's, again, this is one of those ones that's not finalized now, because that's a grant program, and we have to talk to the state and make sure we can push the money off to either January or to next year, depending on, again, what the situation looks like mid-year. But for now, the answer is there will not be after-school programs. Now, at the high school level, I talked about the extracurricular activities already. We will try to do some of those, but they'll all be virtual. Right now, the 21st Century program, which is a great middle school after-school program that we've had here for the last 10, 12 years, maybe longer. In the summer, that's being done virtually, and we're getting some positive feedback. It's not a ton of kids, but the kids that are there are engaged and enjoying it. So we will offer some virtual after-school programs, but doesn't fit the needs that I know some of the parents have, which is the child care issue after school. So for now, and I apologize because I know it's probably not what you want to hear, for now there will be no after-school programs.
Transitioning to the health and sanitizing and everything, how will students and staff be screened every day? Okay, so the staff, right now, everybody that's working in the summer, the staff will be a self-review. So and that's in the guidance from the state. They're supposed to review themselves at home. There's a set of 6 questions, I think it is, that they have to answer. Do they have a fever? Do they have symptoms? They have a list of symptoms. Have they been in contact with anyone that's positive COVID? There's a whole list. And so you do that self-review at home. As long as it's no to all the questions, then you're all set. You also can badge in. I think that's what we're leaning towards in the
fall, but the adults can badge in as answering the questions that way when they get to the school. For the students, the state guidance is really that the parents can also self-review and answer those questions. The problem is with 4,000 students, we haven't been able to find a efficient and effective way to get notified which students are not doing it, because we have to screen everybody. So I think, and again, the principals have been really good, and in talking to them, I talked earlier about them saying, let's have 4 or 5 different entrances. So we're also going to get one of the infrared thermometers at each of those entrances, and a staff member will. It's really quick. If you haven't, a lot of places you go to, it happens. So maybe you all have seen that, but you just put it up near the forehead and it beeps and it gives you a reading of the temperature. So every kid on the way into the building will be screened.
What is the protocol if a parent, child, or teacher staff member gets COVID-19?
That's an important one, obviously, and we talked about that a lot today with the employees. The guidance for that one is also clear. We have to work with the Department of Health. So Mary Fran from the Department of Health has been fantastic. I had a meeting with her yesterday. Actually, we have one every Wednesday, and she understands she's going to be busy as soon as school starts, and all of the local Department of Health. But all of that, there's no real set rule. It's going to depend on how much contact that student or staff member had with other people, how close they were, how long that contact was. And so we will work very closely with the Department of Health, take their guidance. We'll assist them as the guidance tells us to do, the regulations tell us to do, in any contact tracing that has to be done. But that's really all going to come through the local Department of Health, and those guidelines will come from them. There's real, I know there's talk about 14 days if you have it, 14 days if you're with somebody who have it, and it's not as clear cut as that. And so there are some 14 days when you get it that is in there, but every person that you saw that day won't necessarily have a 14-day quarantine. Again, it'll depend on a lot of different factors, and so we will work closely with the Department of Health each time that happens. There were a couple other questions about, will there be a notice going out and all of that, and there's HIPAA rules, obviously, and so we'll follow all the guidance with that, but there may be times where, you want to know what kid it is or what staff member it is, and we just can't tell you. So again, ask for your understanding if and when that occurs.
Will teachers and staff be tested weekly for COVID-19?
No. The state ed guidance is very clear on that the schools are not responsible for testing, are not supposed to be testing, so that won't happen. And really, actually, I had a conversation with one of PTA members today. If we tested everybody tomorrow and they all came out negative, that doesn't mean they're not going to get exposed over the weekend. And if we tested everybody on September 15th, it doesn't mean that they don't get exposed when they go home that day. So we can't test. I mean the testing right now at all the testing centers are sometimes taking 2, 3, even longer days to come back. With colleges all coming back to the area, although some of them are remote, the Department of Health has told us that those tests the turnaround time is not great right now. So to think that the school district can somehow find a way to do that, it's not going to, the answer is no.
I think you kind of touched on this, but if a child does test positive, does the whole school or classroom have to close down?
No. So that, again, that was the rule in the spring when we were talking about coming back. The governor actually said that anytime there's a case, the whole school would close down. So that has been changed. And again, it could change again. The answer could be yes tomorrow when he comes out. But right now, the guidance is no. You work on a case-by-case basis with the Department of Health, and depending on each individual situation, you may close a classroom if 9 kids in the same class have it. We may be told even to close a whole building if there's some kind of outbreak in a particular building. But there will be no set guidelines on that. That'll come from conversations and collaboration with the Department of Health.
How often will bathrooms be cleaned, and how will occupancy be limited?
I think I'll let Mr. Hoteling answer that.
So we've been working with our director of facilities to work with the custodians and figure out a schedule for cleaning all high touch points, including bathrooms. The guidance says to them, our goal is to on the hour. Each building has a different amount of bathrooms and a different amount of people working in each building, and we're still working on that schedule, but that is the goal. In our extended school year program, that is what we're doing. It is a smaller program, but also going around in that building to get the doorknobs and tabletops and items such as that. In terms of occupancy, occupancy is not necessarily limited in a bathroom, but congregating in a bathroom is going to be monitored and tried to not happen. So that'll be different at the high school than it will at an elementary school. In the high school, we have monitors that are in each hallway, which will assist with that. And then at the elementary level, I think it'll be based on the principal and the teacher's discretion.
What will be the sanitation and disinfecting protocols for the schools in general?
Mr. Hoteling, can you take that one too?
Let's see here. So I kind of touched on that a little bit. A big part of it, again, that Mr. Carmelo mentioned, was the after-school program. So we definitely need more time to get into each classroom. We have a couple of different scenarios there. I'll start at the high school. We did talk with the staff today, and Mr. Carmelo had mentioned everyone's going to be doing things a little bit differently. So as students are changing classes, we're asking the middle school and high school to look at each classroom teacher and possibly the students assisting to wipe down their desk that they're now entering into. That is definitely going to be a change from historical cleaning. At the elementary level, where students are staying put, again, there's a lot of emphasis on hand sanitizing and hand washing. Teachers will also be given spray bottles to wipe down desks as well. And then, of course, we have our regular custodial cleaning, which we'll be getting into. Every room and every high touch point must be wiped down and cleaned every night, including, again, bathrooms and tabletops and light switches. And there's quite a long list of spots that need to be hit. We're still working on a full schedule for the exact protocol, but we're definitely working on it.
And the other thing with that, we've been working with Bob Garland, who's our director of facilities, and for a couple of years now, he's been looking to really put a schedule together. So this is a more detailed schedule. So this is going to help move that forward. The guidance tells you to have a report that will tell which rooms were cleaned, which times and what areas, the high touch points, the high frequency spots like Mr. Hoteling is talking about. So and that all because it's the contact tracing that we just talked about. So if somebody has positive in the room and we know that the custodian has been in there after that and has done deep cleaning and has a checklist of the pieces that he's done or she's done, then we'll have that report to fall back on.
In addition to that, Mr. Carmelo, we've also invested in sanitizing foggers for each building.
Mm-hmm.
So we are testing them out to see how they work, but you may have seen something similar, say on like an airplane where you actually go in and defog or fog the room itself, and it sanitizes just by sitting on the surface, not needing a direct wipe down.
And so we have, right now we purchased one for each building of those, and we'll see how they work and how effective they are, and purchase a couple more if we need to. We've also talked to the bus company about possibly them using those. So I don't think we got a final answer on that yet. Okay.
Will there be sanitizer placed near entrances, classrooms? As a parent, can I send my kids with some, or?
Yeah, so I said before, every room will have hand sanitizer. The guidance will be, use it on the way in, use it on the way out, but certainly students can bring their own.
This question is about ventilation. At this time, my main concern for returning to the classroom is the ventilation systems in the classrooms. I know it is stated in the plans to increase ventilation to the greatest extent possible. Can you please explain what the district is going to do? Will we have HEPA filtration systems in place?
Go tell me. You have all the good questions.
Yeah, so ventilation is now a hot topic, especially since the governor had discussed it in terms of shopping malls. So this question was not building specific, and we have 8 buildings in the district, and some of them are different in terms of their ventilation systems. So the guidance speaks to fresh air and mechanical ventilation systems. I'll start with 2 of our schools that are older schools are grandfathered in without mechanical ventilation systems. That's schools 16 and 18. And the guidance says to keep those windows open as much as possible and the doorways the doors open. In addition, the district will be buying fans for every classroom in those buildings to help circulate the air. All of our other buildings, their classrooms have unit vents or mechanical ventilators. They pull in fresh air and 3 times per hour in each room. And so that really satisfies that requirement. The windows don't have to be open, but they during class time, but the guidance does recommend it. There are some rooms, and we are working with the principals right now to get a listing of all those rooms that are interior spaces that don't have windows, and the district is looking at a solution to have a portable air filter in those spaces. The question specifically talked about HEPA filters, which are high-level filters, and our systems don't even accommodate for HEPA filters. We are looking at increasing our filter level from a, say, MERV 8 to a MERV 10, but we cannot, in our current infrastructure, get to a MERV 13 or higher.
And we can't use the HEPAs, right?
A HEPA is considered, yes, a MERV 13 or higher.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
In regards to visitors, will we be allowed to have any visitors in the buildings? And if we are, do they have to have their temperatures taken?
So yes, but the first answer is limited. So we will not have as many visitors as we typically have. Visitors will be restricted to pretty much emergency situations, something where the health and well-being of the students are at risk. Any visitor that does come, however, and we've had visitors this summer a little bit, any visitor that does come will have to go through the normal screening at the front door and have their ID, but also will have to go through those questions that I referred to before that the staff have to do and get their temperature taken and have a mask on.
In regards to district planning, how will lockdown drills, active shooter, and evacuation drills work? As some of those drills involve the kids crowding together in a small space within a classroom.
Yeah, really good question. So the guidance does address it. I said before, the New York State Education Department guidance was 145 pages, and it was that's obviously long and comprehensive and overwhelming a little bit, but they did address all of this stuff. So the lockdown drills are still required. We're required to have 12 drills a year. 8 are fire drills and 4 are lockdown type drills. But they are giving us some flexibility to do it in a socially distant way. So one of the suggestions is to do half the class at one day and half the class the next. As long as everyone's getting trained on it, you don't have to actually have it be. We've been really doing a great job with our drills. We take them very seriously. A couple years ago, we had the real comprehensive drill with all of Troy PD and Troy Fire and state police that were all here. It was like a 3-hour drill. It was really fantastic. So we've been taking it really seriously. So this year, there'll be a little bit different in that it won't be as live simulation. But we will have to keep doing them. But we'll be able to do them with only half the class or a portion of the class and let the other kids kind of watch what's happening so that everybody's not crowded in the corner. If you don't know, in a real lockdown situation, the whole students and staff move to a corner away from the door so they're not visible from the doorway or from the windows. It makes sense to ask this question because everybody's really on top of each other in that kind of situation, which we're certainly not going to do in the situation we're in right now. So we will have to do the drills, but we'll be doing them differently than in the past.
In regards to the reopening plan as a whole, is this just a proposal, and is there a chance by September this will change or schools won't open at all?
There's a chance for sure. So again, I said earlier the plan is going to be fluid forever, really. There's going to be no real final plan because as the situation changes, then our plan will have to accommodate and change. Depending on what the governor says tomorrow, we'll all be listening intently. There is a chance. In fact, there was a rumor today that he's going to postpone things for a month or so. So we'll see. We'll see when he comes out and see what he actually says. But absolutely, there's a chance that things change tomorrow or change next week or change in September. And we'll be ready to do that. Again, we'll be as transparent as we can and communicate as quickly as we can when things do change, and appreciate everybody's flexibility when we're doing that. As the situation and as the directions change from the top, from the state, we will change accordingly. I think that's a great place to stop. I hope this was informative and helpful. Again, we had hundreds of questions, so we certainly couldn't get to them all tonight, but I promise you we will get to them. And also, if you have additional questions that have come up after hearing what we had to say tonight, or if you have additional questions come up next week, use that COVID-19 at troycsd.org email, and we will get back to you. We just ask that you be a little patient. It may take us a day or two because there are a lot of emails in there. But thank you so much for listening. I want to apologize one more time for the delay in the start, but I think we adjusted well. Thank you, Ms. Cheevers, for that. And thank you for everybody being here tonight. Thank you.